And call our meeting to order. We need, first of all, to approve the agenda. But before we approve the agenda, we need to move the new business forward in the agenda. So we'll do the agenda, the new business as soon as we finish the approval of the minutes. So if we can we'll make that change. If I can have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimous. Approval of the minutes. Everyone's had an opportunity to read the minutes? Yes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we will go on, we'll move forward to our next part of the agenda, which we've moved now to the front, is going to be the zone change. And if you wish to testify or provide a comment on this matter, you must register with the clerk in the land use hearing registration form and be sworn in with staff. Is there anyone, we have Mr. Hutchins is here, anyone else that's going to, would you please, you make sure you both have signed in, right?
Well, he's not going to speak.
Okay, you're not going to speak.
I just want to listen in.
Sure, no problem. So we have just Mr. Hutchins. If you would stand, raise your right hand so we can swear you in. Everybody that's going to. With your right hand raised, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, so we're ready to go. Zone change ZC 2305. There is a request for a zone change from A1 to R1. The applicants, Rodney and Renee Hutchins, are requesting this zone change. So we'll go ahead. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant residing at 1150 McCoy requests a zone change from agricultural A1 to residential R1. The current zone of A1 is non-conforming to the physical footprint of the property and the regulations cited in the zoning designation. Changing this zone to R1 is in line with the residence established and conforms to the regulations set forth in the R1 zone designation. The current zone of A1 has setback requirements that are proportionate to the property. R1 zone has appropriate setback requirements that allow the property owner to better utilize the property, build in compliance with the conforming regulation of R1 zoning. So we've discussed this before, Mr. Chairman, and for the folks in the audience. We have a lot of A1 properties out there, agriculturally zoned properties, that are being assessed residential. They have this zone designation, which has these huge setback requirements because the city of Aztec on their agricultural zone requirements is 5-acre minimum. And we don't have, I don't think, one property, or there's very few properties that meet that criteria. And typically, property owners who have an agricultural zone are assessed agricultural, and they're assessed at a much lower rate than residential. And in this case, and in many others, this property is being assessed residential, it's being utilized as residential, and Mr. Hutchins is looking to build a building on his property, and perhaps even more. He does have about an acre.
1 acre.
Huh?
1 acre.
Yeah, 1 acre of property. And with the setbacks that are required under the agricultural zone, he would not be able to fully utilize his property to put other buildings on and whatnot. So that's why we have this action before you here today.
Okay. Anyone else would like to share?
Can I talk for real?
You bet.
I don't know a lot that's going on. I'm sorry. My wife usually handles this kind of stuff, and she had to go to Santa Fe last night. But is this going to raise taxes? What exactly is this going to do?
So what will happen is your property's already assessed residential 1.
Okay.
It is zoned as agricultural, A1,
Right.
and so your tax rate is going to be the same.
So I just can't have horses on my property anymore? Is that what we're saying?
If you have an acre, you can have 1 animal.
Okay. Okay.
You have to have a half an acre grazing land.
Yeah. Which, yes, you can. It's, typically a livestock board allows 2 large animals per acre.
I see. Yeah, I don't,
That still conforms. The only thing that changes is that you will be able to build more on your property because the A1, the agricultural zone, has setbacks of like 45 feet that you can't build, and R1 has smaller setbacks. Yeah, like basically gets you larger property more, but your taxes stay the same.
okay, I just didn't know what was going on. I mean, like I said, she ran off to Santa Fe last night and she said, oh, by the way, you gotta come here, come on. So anyway, yeah, so whatever it's gonna take to get my building up so I can get rolling.
There you
Okay.
go.
Anyone else have anything? All right, so we can have a motion to take a vote on it. Does, council, do you have anything? Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or questions that you would like to ask?
No.
No. I think it's pretty straightforward. So let's have a vote. All in favor of the zone change?
We need a first and second, sorry.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And then a roll
Can
call.
we get a motion to vote?
Motion to vote.
Second.
Peggy can hear us, right? Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote. Peggy?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the zone change.
Anna?
Which is a proposal.
I second the motion.
And then the vote, roll call vote. Peggy? You're in favor?
Yes, I am.
Aye.
Aye, in favor.
I'm in favor, so the motion will, the vote will pass unanimously.
Great.
All right. All right, so that'll conclude that part of this meeting.
You may go.
That was pretty easy.
Peggy, do you want to stay on to listen or are you good?
I think that's good.
Okay, thank you so much for taking a few moments so that we can go ahead and take care of this.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll try to change that.
Thank you, bye-bye.
I've been here about 6 months now.
I realize, wasn't how I thought it would be when they're building, but I'm old school.
Okay, got the business.
I didn't realize that all this. It took forever. So, you guys are gonna go on with me? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all, thank you, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Well, then I guess I wanna.
If you ever have questions, you get ready to build, come see us.
Well, that's what my deal is. We're hoping if interest rates will go down a little bit more, we wanna build.
All righty, well, come see us then.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we're ready for the old business. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, yeah, the conditional use permit 32-02 was passed by the commission. The number 2 zone change, ZC 2302 was also passed, and was for the 400 North Light Plant, Sunset Village Mobile Home Park. And the zone change 23, ZC 2303, zone change on 305 Light Plant Road also passed the commission. Those 2 mobile home parks are now appropriately zoned as mobile home parks, and that's what we did there. But most importantly, they won't be allowed to keep RVs there again. And one applicant that I think you may remember, Ernestine Cruz, who runs Sunset Village, was trying to get out ahead of the owners of that mobile home park, kind of pushing her to allow RVs. And so she wanted to get the zone changed so that she could take it back to the owned property owners and say, we can't, it's not allowed anymore. And again, it's just appropriate for what it is. 305 Light Plant, North Light Plant Road, we are still working with the property owner out of San Diego, and the calls for service there, the substandard living conditions there, it is night and day. You guys probably know living here with those 2 trailer parks. We did get an agreement from the property owner to allow the police department to patrol in that park. We've got 38 units in there cited for unsafe living conditions. They've evicted about 3 or 4 people so far. And we're working with, doing a final agreement with the property owner to assess fines and penalties if they don't comply with their own park rules, their own lease agreement. They do background checks. Basically, they need to stop allowing the people that come in that cause all these issues, that they turn around and say, you know, I don't know what to do with these people, because, you know, they're beating each other up at night and they're causing all these problems. And we're telling them that, one, you need to enforce your own park rules and your own lease and do a background check, and if you don't, then you're gonna pay a penalty for it. And we're kind of right at that point with them. It's been going on since September, and we've had some progress with it. But there's also a row of RVs and fifth wheels that they have there that, now that the zone change happened, we're gonna be seeking to get them to remove those as well and treat it as a mobile home park, so.
So what kind of timeframe do they have, are you gonna give them to get their RVs moved out?
Well, once we cite them for it, we want all the other issues to kind of come in, and they have. I will say for the record, the property owner has come through with new park rules, he's come through with a better lease agreement. They've made arrangements to do background checks. The biggest issue, and she was here at the last meeting, is the management, just not effective management. And it's nothing personal, but, you know, if you're coaching a team, and for all the years you're coaching that team, and they've just had losing season after losing system, you know, you can't fire the players, it's time to get a new coach. And that's just basically what needs to happen there. And I've told her that, I told him that, that's really what they need to do. But the next step now, we've got through January for us to complete this next agreement. And then we'll probably either at the end of this month or beginning of next month, now that we got a new co-compliance, which is our community preservation specialist, we gave him a new title, we'll be tackling that, and sending him out, you know, to get that resolved. Part of the other things in the agreement is for them to provide more beautification of their own park. You know, Sunset Village, again, you've got common areas that are landscaped and kind of kept up, and then on this side, it's not. You know, it's just, you can tell it's an absentee landing, you know, kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, I had that crossed out. I'm sorry. The LEDA funding process, so we've had 2 applicants on Main Street that, and I've been told it's called Main Avenue, I can't say Main Street. Yeah. The Rustic Creations that bought the old feed store. And the property that's really across to the south of Rubio's, it's called the Lenore. They have a sign called the Lenore. Used to be an old bike shop. They applied back in October to the Economic Development Advisory Board for some economic assistance to help with their building. So we've gone through that process. In fact, Tuesday at the commission meeting, the commission will vote to start the process on adopting an ordinance to allow the city to assist them each with about $55,000 that will go towards a reimbursement of a component of what they're doing to the building. So Rustic Creation needs a new roof, which is $83,000 to $120,000, kind of the bids they've gotten, and we'll reimburse up to $55,000 of that roof. That's all that they asked for. The Lenore, which is a kind of a petite hotel meeting place that she's got a website, really doing quite a bit of work on that property. Basically gutted that building. I mean, she needs a new roof, handicap access, some masonry improvements, and a drainage fix, all totaling well over $100,000, and we'll fund up to $55,000 of reimbursable on those components as well. The problem is, because it's public money, we're doing the intent to adopt the ordinance to allocate those funds Tuesday. We have to wait a month, go through the ordinance process, wait for a month, And then on February 27th, they can do final adoption of the ordinance. And then 5 days after that is when that ordinance comes into effect. And then on March 12th, the commission has to approve a project participation agreement that's spelled out in the ordinance that requires the ordinance. You gotta love government. So we're looking around March 12th before they'll be actually eligible to tap those funds. And I'm getting a lot of folks who have businesses on Main Street that would like to tap into that. You know, if this fund was created in 2017, it's about it was initiated at $100,000, and with interest, because it hasn't been used, is about $120,000 now. And so, we're hoping that the commission will kind of, put more money in, refund it, and put more money in after we expend this. But, like I told my wife, and you own a building on Main Street, that, be patient, and some others have come up that would like to utilize that money. These applicants did a lot of work. They put a business plan together, they could put all the numbers together. The ordinance is very specific as to what qualifies and how. It needs to be return on investment for the city. That's vague, but you have to have a scoring sheet and a presentation through our Economic Development Advisory Board that says, yes, we'd like to fund them. And then even then, we had to come up with the criteria of how much to fund. And so each one of these Rustic Creations and Lenore have over $500,000, almost close to $600,000 invested. The Lenore, because she gutted the building and construction costs, is close to $500,000. So we're basically, we don't want to fund something that's going to save a business, but they'd be able to continue on their own. They'd be able to survive on their own without this money. But we definitely want to help with a component of it. And so 10% is what the criteria is that we'd be willing to fund of their overall investment. So $592,000, which I think is the Lenore or Rustic, they're both at 596 or 592 is what their total investment is. Their eligibility for funding would be $59,000 and $56,000 respectively. And we decided on $55,000 apiece because one, that just about uses up the fund, and two, they will cover a significant portion of their project. So this will be a first for the city also, because it just hasn't been done before. There was one other opportunity to have this done when the Green Building, they call it the Green Building, the old Just Us Kids or what, that's Mike Smith, is kind of a known investor here, who owns the building kind of across from you on the corner. He actually had a very good plan, went through all the steps, and was about $800,000 as his overall investment. And the city was prepared to fund him $80,000 for a sprinkler system, but his deal fell through. So that was kind of the only time the city entertained anything like this. This is definitely going to be, and it's pretty much done. And we got through this process. So.
And so that's funding just for Main Avenue? Or is it in the city?
In the city, but what makes it easier, and I say that term loosely, is that it's within the metropolitan redevelopment area that allows the city to use government money towards private business. It'd be a little harder to do it outside of the MRA, and this fund was created through that to help the downtown. But if a business outside of the MRA wanted to tap these funds, we would work with them on it. There would just be more steps to go through because it's not within that MRA. So.
Okay. Questions?
I don't think so.
All right, new business, we have the sign code changes, huh?
Yep. So Tuesday at 5 o'clock, as you know, Mr. Chairman, and be alongside with us, Anna, and of course I extended this to Tom, and I don't think Peggy's still on, is she? But any one of our planning and zoning commissions can join here at this table with the commission to do a workshop on the sign ordinance. And so, one of the commissioners, particularly the Mayor Pro Tem, Ken George, has been wanting to do this workshop to kind of really understand our sign code and entertain and understand what changes that we might make. I think the action that you all have taken and that the commission already voted on for the pendant signs has been a big first step. Excuse me, and then adding in, the P and Z board as an appeal board was also a pretty good, first step into getting that done. So, that'll be at 5 o'clock, Tuesday, January 23rd.
What time, and did you say we wanted to meet at 4:30? Or did I misunderstand you before the meeting?
You and I?
Yeah.
Yeah, or just any time before then, if you feel that, you wanna meet, but it's basically just to kind of set the tone, it's, we will go through, and Jarita, I guess, has done a lot of work she's done all the work on what we're kind of looking at in terms of changing.
They got wind we were doing changes and they strongly wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
So what I did is I went through and did stuff I knew we wanted to try to do. And so we're hoping they like what I did and don't want to change a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So that was why we're doing it this way,
Right.
instead of bringing it like we thought through you guys.
But that's just a workshop, there's no action gonna be taken afterwards, so there's nothing on their agenda for that evening that
Just
we're
to
gonna
get
act on.
feedback from them as to where we go.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want, is just, and I'm gonna tell them, we're gonna discuss with you, some of the preliminary discussions I've had with the Mayor Pro Tem and the mayor is the work you've done on creating that ordinance, basically on the signs, and why I think it's gonna be great to have you there to discuss that. And then, at the end of the workshop, we just basically want direction, both staff and the board, to what we do next, what they wanna see us change, not change, add or not add. I called out when we've had our discussions, that in your ordinance that you put together was the fact that we have the MRA mentioned in it, that was not in our ordinance now. And I think election, campaign signs. was
Campaign signs.
another-
Mhm.
I was working on,
He was working off of an old code, because we actually do have stuff in our code about campaign signs.
so her and I were,
I kept going, what?
so I'm reading this and I said, well, let's start talking. She goes, what are you looking at? So I was going off of something that was already obsolete.
Right.
So,
And I think that's probably part of the problem, or part of the
It is.
issue with people depends on which form they're looking at.
yeah.
You gotta go to that code online.
Yes,
Yeah.
online, and I don't know where I pulled it out of the office somewhere and started just working off of that, but I've been in other communities where we working on a completely obsolete personnel policy that it just wasn't, it wasn't.
It happens.
So,
It happens, I hear you.
yeah, so that's the first step, and I'm glad that we caught that instead of, in our meeting, being embarrassed with
Right.
not even knowing what code we're working with. So it just, in a nutshell, I think we're just gonna have kind of a loose conversation, let them understand what the work you guys have done, and especially the work you've done, and then again, see how they feel about us moving forward. And
Would you guys like to receive it? Did I send it to y'all or just David? I just David for him to kind of do some proofing on me. I can send it to you guys as well, so you know, and I'll send it out to the whole group, and then if they wanna come, let
Yeah,
them know
Yeah.
about meeting Tuesday.
And so what you're gonna send out, is that still gonna have the red changes,
Yeah.
or, okay, so
Yeah.
so everything that's in red is what the changes that we
So if it's in red and it has lines drawn through it, it's what we want deleted,
Right.
and if it's in red with no lines, that's what we're asking to be added,
Right.
Okay.
just so you,
And then I didn't, well, in there, the signage on vehicles and food trucks.
and there's a few places that I've got question marks. Either he's gotta give me direction, or we find out from them, because that one is kind of confusing.
Right, and I know we had spoken about that, and I think we should take it out. Personally, I think we should take it out. So if you go in there and just line through it, because, you know, it says if you're, but you can't have a sign on a vehicle per se.
Yeah.
So then
For advertising.
for advertising, so then that would affect Domino's, that would affect Pizza Hut,
Realtors, right?
realtors,
Construction work. you just
somebody that
slap-
has that little sign. So I think we should remove that.
Yeah.
And then it
And
kind of,
that's something at our meeting that I think they'll appreciate,
Yeah.
that feedback, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of it too is the commission wants to make sure they're still the tail that wags the dog, you know, that they're the ones that are gonna be the ones making that decision and not having to come before them in a formal action without the discussion. But I think that's gonna be the meat of the workshop is, if we've done the work, these are our suggestions and this is why, you know, because, and it just only makes sense, otherwise it's problematic, and you also gotta think about the penalties and enforcement of if we keep it in there, you know? And that's not gonna work either, because
It's not really business friendly.
it's not business
We're
friendly.
not a
right now.
homeowners association in some fancy neighborhood or something.
I was surprised, we thought, I was surprised it was in it, because it's like, well, you know, anybody who's got either a business or Domino's, you know, they all have something on their vehicles,
right.
I
so.
think it's good to be pro.
Well, and then even like parades. Because in theory, you can't even have it in, if you're in a parade, you can't advertise in a parade. I was like, yeah, that just, it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't
I
make
think that's a
that.
good idea.
And I know that found all that information. I found a lot of that information. I was like, well, I missed that whole thing right there.
Yeah.
But it's always good to go back and kind of read it again and be clear, so.
Yeah, that's what jumps out. I think dimensions of signs is another thing that just got a little confusing. We try to really want to kind of simplify that a little more, so the feedback
And
I
I
think we
didn't do a
got,
lot on that.
yeah, and the feedback we got is, from a lot of folks is, you know, how do we determine this 30% of the, you know, this and that, and so, you know, in some regards, we have to have dimensions on there for different types of signs, and whether it's on a wall or it's freestanding or wherever, that, you know, but, that's just another thing that we want feedback from the commission on. And then you get into murals.
Right.
And that's a whole nother world of where we really can't regulate murals as art and, you know, content. You know, there's a thing about we can't judge on content, well, you know, so those types of things that we will have to address as well. That
And graffiti.
graffiti, you know, and I don't know if we have a clear definition of graffiti. We thank God we don't have a graffiti problem here yet. Yeah,
Underneath the bridge.
yeah, a little bit. I'm really surprised that, you know, I walk underneath the bridge that goes by Riverside, that, and the Money Saving Bridge there, that those murals are still pretty much well intact, you know, not,
They've been fixed
Yeah.
a few times.
yeah, so.
Okay. Any other questions on sign code?
No, just if you send that along, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Look at it. Thanks.
Will do.
Yeah.
And I can meet you at 4:30 if that works better for you on the
Okay.
23rd.
Sure.
But I will be at
We
that
can-
meeting.
We can, yeah, kind of just have a meeting before the meeting.
Yeah, and if you guys would like to come to that,
Okay.
yeah, we can meet at 4:30 and be ready for that 5 o'clock meeting, yes. Okay. Update on chapter 26.
Yeah, so chapter 26, that's the removing of animals from chapter 26 to aid the citywide zone change. So, as you guys know, in this action today was kind of part of that, getting us aligned with appropriate zoning. And so, when we were looking at doing this kind of citywide zone change and having these town halls and letting folks know, like the neighbor to the applicant here who was like, I don't want anything to happen to my agriculture. That's exactly what he said when he came in and the feedback we're getting. So it's kind of good that we're taking our time on this because we're kind of picking off the folks that all have that feeling or understanding that we're taking something from them and we're not. But also, and Jarita found, this issue that we have to address is with animals. You guys passed, the chicken ordinance and hens. Well, roosters are allowed in agriculture, so that really would be the only issue, that if someone wants to keep their ag, to say, well, now you're gonna take my roosters away, which I don't think is gonna be an issue, but you never know. Because that's the only zone that they're allowed to be in. And so, we felt that the best way, and I've always felt this, I think I shared this with you guys, is that all things animals should be in the animal control ordinance. We need to take it out of zoning, and that's exactly what Drew is proposing we do, and that's what we're going to do. And so, we still need to meet with the animal control director, which is Tina Roper, and she's, in some preliminary discussion, she's all for it, she doesn't really have any issues either way. There are some things in her animal control ordinance she may need to kind of beef up, because I've had in other communities, and I think what we need to graduate to here, is the regulation of animals is based on saturation. You can only have 5 dogs. If you have 50 dogs, that's too much. Or cats, or pigs, or whatever. We touched on that about when Mr. Hutchins commented that he can't have any horses anymore. That's really regulated through the state livestock board. It's a state statute on half acre per animal or 2 large animals per acre that we really should not be involved in regulating. And so I think it's gonna be cleaner to do it that way, and that's why we're taking a step back and taking care of that. So that
We've gotta get animals out of chapter 26, and we have to try to establish the change of possibly doing an acre to 3 acres, a different zoning, and a 3 acres and up, leaving it as agricultural. So I'm trying to kind of work on both of those as I go through this.
Yeah, so we discussed, well, do we have an agricultural zone that we create between that 1 and 3 acres? Or is it, what zone is that? Because it's not R1, it's not anything that we have now. We can't really create an agricultural zone that is an agriculture that's really determined by the county assessors that they have as a minimum of 3 acres. So this is something that in a future meeting and future discussions we'll have with you guys on what does that zone look like that we have, and really it won't revolve around so much on animals as it will that space of building. And it may be R1A, we discussed that, where that R1A is between 1 acre and 3 acres.
Because
And
you would need different setbacks.
the setbacks that's really what it comes down to, is what Drew says, setbacks. Because like today, in convincing Rodney and his family, was we don't want to do this zone change. And I said, well, I think you might want to, because if you look at the setbacks in the agricultural zone that we have now, you won't be able to build anything hardly.
So they have they were zoned agricultural, but with 1 acre of land.
Yeah,
And they don't meet the county's, criteria of A1.
and they really don't even have any animals.
Yeah,
You know,
So
At
there
this
is
time.
completely
it's a house on
Right.
an acre. And so,
in between.
and I mean, he made a comment, well, I can't have a horse there anymore. And it's like, no, you can. That really the only thing that's changing is that you can have setbacks now, like a residential zone setback. And so I think that's where we're gonna kind of get to, is maybe to encourage people to have, in that R1A zone, right now, the R1 zone has a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. So we don't want someone who's got an acre to 3 acres to have an R1 zone that's got a minimum of 7,000 square feet to then start building other homes on that acre. And they're not really allowed to anyway, because without splitting up the property and that kind of thing. But we could create that lot size to be bigger, at 10,000 to 15,000 or whatever. And then have the setbacks, like Jarita said, be equal to what a residence would be. But maybe give them that feel that it's kind of a semi-quasi-agricultural zone, whatever. So what we really want to focus on is the few properties that are 3 acres and above, and give them the option to go through the process with the county and qualify as a true agricultural assessed property. Or not, I mean, they'll have that option.
And if I'm not, it's like 30 properties, right?
That are,
That are gonna hit that requirement,
The
Yeah.
3 to 5,
3 to 5, is it?
it's a much smaller number.
yeah, it is, it's probably 15 to 20.
Because there was like 260 total properties.
I-
That list
that are
was
listed as
like
agricultural,
260-ish, I'm just going off memory.
Yeah.
But it's like 260 and like 30 or
Yeah, it was
30 or 40 of them are actual A1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would actually meet it.
That would meet that 3
yeah.
to 5 acres.
Or there was even less that met the 5 acres. Our
Yeah.
requirement's 5 acres, which I don't know where that came from, but the county's requirement is 3.
That's
So
why
that's-
we're proposing to change it so that we match the county.
Yeah. Yeah, ours is 5, and there's not one property that hit that 5 acre mark. They're all 5 and under, or maybe there's 1 or 2 that's right around 5 acres, but.
Yeah.
Or they're in the county, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was like 30 that were 3 to 5.
I think it may be.
'Cause he broke it down pretty good on that.
It's less, I believe, than 30.
Is it less than 30?
That meets that 3 acre.
But right around there, I mean, and there was over 200 that are, like all of Pioneer,
All those little bitty lots.
Maddox, I think.
Right.
You know, those are
Well,
all,
right here at McCoy Road.
McCoy.
McCoy Road has
When you
several.
get past the elementary, you got some pretty good acreage back through there, but it's still not, I mean,
5 acres is a pretty good sized piece of property.
yeah, till you get way back in there, it's probably a little bigger, so. And the city limits pretty much stop pretty close to where these guys are at.
Yeah, Willow, right?
Yeah, Willow, so.
You know, south
Anything
of,
but,
north of them goes to the
County,
county.
yeah.
and there's some bigger pieces back that way,
Yeah.
past north of Willow, so.
Yeah. And those bigger pieces, Hackus owns probably most of them,
Oh, yeah?
Buster Hackus.
Yeah, it's some nice property there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we still have work to do.
Yeah, we're chipping away at it.
Well, I think that's I think that's good that we move those animals.
Yep, that seems like it'll make things easier.
We've gotta get them out of our code and make sure that it's covered in her code.
Yeah,
so
that's the
that
big
So
we
it
thing.
don't
goes
have a
somewhere.
lapse there.
Right, so they're not in limbo.
Yeah.
Well, and the two codes were conflicting too. When I was said before, it depended on who you call. If you call the animal control and says, can I have a ferret or a pig? They said, well, sure, because in that animal control code it was allowed. If they called the planning and zoning office or community development, and they asked, can I have a, they said, well, no, you can't. And so the two codes were actually kind of conflicting.
Oh, wow.
And it really, just kind of stay in our lane kind of thing,
Well, that'll help people. That'll help the citizens. All right. Any other comments or updates?
Well, our infamous East Arterial, I wish I had an update, but I really don't. We're still in the same holding pattern. The only difference is that the threatening emails and calls are getting more frequent on our end to NMDOT. I think maybe I'll be repeating myself, but the last big meeting, it was a Zoom meeting with the Secretary of NMDOT, Steve DeBelle, our senator, our newly retained legal counsel, who was a former DOT general counsel, who's working for the city now, was on this call. And we were told that everything's in place, ready to go, that the New Mexico Department of Transportation in 5 days from that call will be sending this obligation to fund, this official note to, basically gives us the green light to go out to bid. And that was 25 days ago. So we're back to emailing and calling and trying to, we're just not getting any communication or anything.
So it was agreed to in that phone conference group, and then, and the follow-through just
Didn't happen.
didn't happen.
And it was by the secretary of DOT that said that.
Okay.
And said that in front of or with our state senator, who's really pushing for this thing. And so it's kind of a gamble on his part to do that and not follow through. And then the project coordinator, she also reiterated, we'll get that through. It's gotta go through the Department of Transportation and Finance or something. And, things happen, right? That maybe it didn't, but we have no communication. So there's not even a professional, courtesy to say, hey, we told you to
Ran
be
into
here
a
in 5
problem,
days.
yeah, nothing.
Now we're looking at 10 days, or I'll let you know, it's just nothing, and no callback. And no-
Maybe they forgot the holidays.
And, I'm over here thinking, we need to go, I'm thinking, we need to go, and I'll use the mayor's term, step on throats, I love that he says that, it's probably not appropriate, but I know we're being recorded.
Go down,
But
down. or
figuratively speaking, we need to really go kind of knock on the door and say, hey, you know what, we're not getting any communication here. And so that was discussed by even our attorney, she can be pretty aggressive, with saying, well, let's send an email copying me so you've got legal counsel on this email thread. And I haven't heard anything that they've got a response or anything like that. But we're in the same place, unfortunately. And talking about our conversation before the meeting about costs of things, last March, this project was $12 million. October, when we were supposed to go out for bid, was $17 million. Now we're looking at, we got a month-long bid process, at least. We'll be back to March of this year, probably 20 million. Just
So
That's
we'll
crazy.
get funded and then we'll be short because it'll be, the cost of the project will be 5 million over what we're gonna get funded.
exactly. That's
So then you
exactly
go
right.
back to the drawing board and you're gonna get funded for the whole set amount because you can't extend it.
And I got my opinions, I'll keep to myself, but that just seems like this is kind of on purpose, it just seems like,
So they don't have to spend the money.
It sounds like the process, delay, and then, we'll approve it when we know that the costs are gonna be over what we approve, and then go back to the drawing board, then you got a whole another 6 to 8 months of going through the process again to
Yeah.
get funded.
well, see, we also got certifications that expire. So you have utility, environmental certifications that they do on these projects, that it only lasts for 6 months, and you have to renew those. And they take several weeks to do, plus, what caused a 5-year delay was, they moved the goalpost prior to that with the right-of-way requirement.
So, yeah,
80 feet is pretty much the right-of-way with 550 right now. 550 is about 80 feet wide. Federal highway is 180 feet. They require 450 feet on this project, that we're scratching our head, well, you definitely know what we're talking about. And that brought in private property that we had to acquire, that brought in high-pressure gas that we had to move, it brought in the whole dump site that we have to.
that's why the
remediate.
legal side is gonna have to just really be aggressive, because what they're doing is costing the city a lot of money.
Yeah, it already has.
It has cost us a lot.
And delay, and like you said, delay, well, okay, you met all this criteria, oh, why now we need you, you know, that's, back then was like, well, we're gonna require a 400-foot right of way. And we didn't have legal counsel back then, wasn't even here to really be like, let's question that, because it's DOT, they did question, but now we are. And there may be some kind of back-end remediation that we can take on that right of way now, but it's almost too little too late because we've already acquired property. We've already bid in to take that old dump, clean that old dump out. We've already budgeted to move high-pressure gas, which is $500,000 just to move it. And so it's really just on the 30,000-foot view, this looks like something that they just don't want, you know? And they're trying to make it as difficult as possible, so.
Well, they can't just decide not to finish it at this point. I mean, we had all the ducks lined up, so I think that, yeah, I mean, I just think that the squeaky wheel, get the grease, maybe might be worth trying to just, you know, push hard on the legal side and say, hey, we can't wait any longer, it's costing us too much, and, you know, you're liable for costing us this amount, or whatever, you know, that the attorneys need to figure out, but I just don't, yeah, I think that's the only thing they're gonna listen to, because
Well,
obviously
and
they've
we're really
got some
glad
kind
that we retained the attorney that we have, because she is definitely, that squeaky, you know,
And she
Okay.
knows DOT,
and she knows it.
Uh-huh.
And she,
so it helps.
you know, when our
Which attorney is it?
Jermaine Chappelle,
Oh, yeah, I knew her.
so, and she right away already kind of discussed with us what she saw is this moving of the goalpost that's unnecessary that we may be able to come back to them on and
Yeah.
get, you know, get them to, you know,
So there's potential recourse in this situation?
potential.
On our
yeah,
part?
and part of it too is, you know, DOT's also gonna cover some of this cost. When we jumped from 12 to 17 million, they said they would cover 6 million of it. And we did nail them down to that they will. And so we're also probably gonna be able to get them to cover whatever costs go beyond that, you know. And, I mean, what's good about all of this is there's a lot of money in Santa Fe that maybe cover these costs as they continue. The contractor's the one that's gonna make out, because it's just, you know, I mean, they're looking at this, a roadway's 60 feet, maybe 80 feet at the most, and you've got another, 320 feet of right-of-way that, you know, it's gotta be dealt with, you know, and so, that's why the bid's gonna be so high. And as you all know, you know, this is phase 2, so phase 3, we haven't even started planning design yet, and gosh.
Let's not think about that yet.
So, you want me to move to number 2?
Whenever you're ready, sir.
So number 2 is actually we got good news. That's been out to bid, the bid's been awarded for the reservoir. I think Sycar, who's a local firm, got it. The other 2 bidders, one out of Denver and Albuquerque, their mobilization is what just killed them. Went out of Denver was $600,000 just for mobilization. And in Albuquerque, I think it was $250,000. And Sycar drastically underbid them basically because they're here. And so,
Well, that's good.
yeah, in
Like
fact,
someone local.
Tuesday, the commission meeting Tuesday, they'll be awarding that bid officially. So that's gonna get going and
30 days.
we'll have a resident, so.
Good.
Great.
The last thing on the legislative session kicked off Tuesday. As you guys may well know, we do have our projects list in. Jeff and I, as county, city manager, will be in Santa Fe at the end of this month for a conference and to kind of rub elbows and kiss Heine or do whatever we got to do to our legislators to see what may, you know, be coming our way. But we have funding for, request for the water line transmission, the South Aztec water line, which is between us and Bloomfield. At $12 million, we have, 5.5 million for the outdoor recreation, manufacturing, and retail facility, which is what we were looking to help, maybe as Jack's Plastic would be a tenant.
How much was that for that you're asking for?
5.5 million.
Okay.
So a lot of the projects that we've had in our, it's called the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan that we send to Santa Fe, has phased cost and development. And so because there's so much money, we lumped all of those phases to one lump sum and are asking to just fund us whole. And quite honestly, I don't know how the 5.5 million came up for that. You know, we already have a $500,000 appropriation for that outdoor recreation facility. And the reason why we're kind of removing Jack's Plastics Welding from that is because the city's moving forward with purchasing the property, and the city's gonna move forward with building the facility, and then we'll find a tenant. And right now, Jack's is a lead candidate, but so is the schools. We've talked with the schools quite a bit about how they wanna come in and work with both Jack's and do something on their own. Or we'll find, the thing that we can also do with that money is create a recreation center that the city doesn't even have, and utilize some of the money for that. So the outdoor recreation manufacturing facility, manufacturing is loosely termed to where it could be an incubator, where we have a commercial kitchen built in there. That's manufacturing, which I really think we should do. It was attempted where the 550 brewery was at. But when they brought that in as an incubator, there was no kitchen. And every incubator I've worked in, you have a commercial kitchen, because most mom and pops and businesses, that's what they need to be able to get their burritos or salsa or whatever they make to market. It has to be done in a commercial kitchen. So some of the other things is for the solar field. What else off the top of my head? Just, there's the top 5 of that list, that's probably 20 projects long, is our priorities. And so the wastewater treatment plant to go to UV treatment, which should have been done many, many years ago, that they're asking for, stuff like that. So we're cautiously optimistic. It's a 30-day session, which is a shortened session. It's already, we knew it was gonna be consumed with crime and, it's kind of special projects, and it already is. So it'll be interesting to see what actually gets funded. On one hand, it may be a good thing, because they may just come in and fund the capital outlay without too much debate or issues, so they can concentrate on their hot button issues of crime and taking their guns and all that. So we'll see. I think right now, going forward, we're really working on next year's session, which is a 60-day session. I think we'll have more leeway to maybe be more effective, but it may work out really well for us this year. And that's it. Anything else you guys have that you want to ask or talk about?
I don't think so.
I have one thing. On the state of the state speech on Tuesday, the governor mentioned that she was gonna ask the legislature for $43 million to clean up streets, roadways, open spaces. And I know one of the things that we had discussed when we first started was cleaning up the streets, the medians, things like that. So my question is, if that gets funded, is maybe we could look to have her pay or have the state pay to get those medians, just to put it on the radar, so that we're looking at that.
Yeah, so, and I've done this quite a bit, and I'd love to do it here, is The state allows the cities or the jurisdictions to pull a permit to beautify and landscape the medians. And they'll allow us to do that. And tie into whatever infrastructure's there for irrigation and whatnot, just like what we got here. But this, right now, the state requires the municipalities to take that on. So this fund that she's talking about doing is really gonna go against, they're gonna have to change some law and policy to allow DOT to actually take those medians on. Because typically that's a city or jurisdiction driven process. So when I saw that, I said, well, that's a great news flash, but the reality is that's not how it works, you know. And DOT is usually very good about saying, hey, we just want you to make us aware that you want to beautify the median and that there's not going to be any, you know, there's a little traffic study done, and you guys do what you want. The city of Albuquerque, you know, had done that all over the city. And I was a part of that, you know, 20 years ago, probably only 25 years ago when they initiated that. And you're talking $130 million worth of improvements to date. Every median in Albuquerque is vegetated. And you've got some state roads within Albuquerque, El Paseo and Tramway, and if you're familiar with Albuquerque, you have, those are state roads that, that you needed that permission or that permit from. And the other community I worked down south in Belen, that's exactly what we had to do also. And they're very good at working with us on that. So I'm curious as to see how that's gonna to come out. Our lobbyist was also, I discussed this with him, and he said they're just throwing so much, they have so much money, they're creating ways to put it in places to just, you know, show that they've moved the money around. And Richardson was very good at doing that so that then they can go back and pull that money out and put it towards their pet projects. And they really feel that's what this governor's doing, you know, which is in line. I mean, she was Secretary of Health under Richardson and probably very much working in the same way. You know, he inherited a hell of a lot of money from Gary Johnson, who left the state for the first time in the balanced budget and did the rail runners and did all these things that, you know, which was fine, but I remember going to Santa Fe in those legislative sessions and seeing these things like that come up that, oh, we're gonna fund this, and then, oh, well, let's go after that, and come to find out it's, you know, kind of like while we're chasing the arterial, it's like, well, you know, here's the money, okay, it's, so, I'm curious to see some of these other bills that come out, and what they want to fund with police and their vehicles, this mandate for all fleet vehicles, like city and county government vehicles to be all electric. You know, that's another one that's, you know, sounds good, you know,
So
but
impractical.
we don't have it's impractical, we don't have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah, so then we just put a bunch of,
They can't even drive them.
yeah, because they won't charge and the charges don't work. Or you're sitting there charging with a diesel generator sitting behind a fence.
Yeah, it's just, well, you know, the ripple effect, you got, you know, your fleet, and anyone, I could always point to Albuquerque or the state, even, they have hundreds, you know, thousands of vehicles, you know, and you need not only charging stations, but you also need you have mechanics, I mean, hundreds of mechanics that work for the state to service these vehicles, so you have to retrain and retool them to work on these things. And that's not easy, you know, so, it's, again, it all sounds good, but it's just not, you know, someone who's been around this for a while says, you know, it's just not gonna materialize. I haven't really been able to see what, you know, what other bills are coming out, they're kind of starting to trickle out, and what gets assigned to committee, but I really am optimistic again because there's so much money that we'll get, you know, funded pretty well.
And we don't have a lack for money, that's for sure.
That's really what's different in all the years I've been in and out of government, is that this is the most money I've ever seen in the state coffers. I mean, it was a really, like, when the recession hit in '08, '09, there was no money. You didn't go to Santa Fe because there wasn't any money, you know? I mean, you had that American Recovery and Reinvestment Act under Obama, and then Richardson assigned former Governor Tony Anaya to kind of disperse those funds. Well, that was very highly political, and it worked at the time, the jurisdiction I worked for, in our favor, but other communities that weren't aligned politically didn't, you know, so, you know, but that, I mean, that was just like the CARES Act, and there's other things that they kind of throw money at, the federal government does, but
They're just printing it and printing it.
But this state,
Sorry.
because, you know,
It feels like it.
because of oil and gas, and because of, you know, Santa Teresa down south, that whole
Fuel
industrial
station,
community is just exploded, is driving, you know, you know, finally, for New Mexico to have money for this stuff, but you know, we'll see. I mean, it's enough money that's gonna last, I think, for many, you know, at least, I'd say the next 5 years. But
That's good news.
Anything else? All right, do you guys have anything else? Andrew? No? Motion?
thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Now we pull off a quorum.
Yeah.
yep. Got something done.
Can we get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Is Peggy still on?
Well, we will call it a day. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.